I want to say again how grateful I am after these many Zoom calls to be in person with people, and welcome to everybody who has come, and great thanks to all of the organizers and especially to Maureen and John. Thank you. So I'm Kateri. I hail from Chicagoland. Bob Alberts quips that he's my research assistant, so his research this morning was to take the USA Today that appeared under the door at the Holiday Inn, and lo and behold, the front page, this paper sort of backs it out of the ballpark every now and then when it comes to a story about war, and the editors put some money into this story, and it's following the ammunition that goes from the Midwest all the way to Ukraine, boxes and boxes and boxes of bullets that rip people's bodies apart, and the pull quote is, "War is bad," Brown, the head of the company, said. Loss of life is bad, but at the end of the day, it's very profitable and injects revenue into this military-industrial base. So you heard it today in USA Today. We can tweet this all over the place. So we were supposed to speak about something personal last night, and so of course I got it flipped, and I'm going to start with something personal today. I'm the daughter of a mother who grew up in such poverty in Ireland that she remembers eating paint off the walls. That hunger and that fear of poverty went into the marrow of my mother's being. And so I am the daughter of a mother who, almost with the fierceness of a mother lioness, wanted to assure that her children would not be afflicted by poverty, that we would be in at least the upper lower class or the lower middle class. We would escape what she couldn't. And so when she saw this daughter kind of flipping in a different direction, my mother, with the fierceness of a mother lioness, really wants. So Debbie spoke last night, Deborah Sweet, beautifully about about growing up as a revolutionary teenager, and it seemed like her parents were kind of on the same page. I learned to be revolutionary, revolting against my mother's iron-like grip, trying to prevent her daughter from going anywhere but straight into the middle class. And so I think the idea of fear and trauma going into the marrow of a person's bones, when we heard Gloria last night talking about the balkanization of a culture, talking about the ways in which these oppressive cultures intergenerationally affect people, yes, the fear and the trauma goes into the marrow of a society. And it plays out in subsequent generations. And I, as a young college student, heard Noam Chomsky say, well, essentially what the United States says to everybody all around the world is that if you do not subordinate yourself to fulfill our national interest, we will eliminate you. And hasn't that played out in every one of the forever wars? If you do not subordinate yourselves to fulfill our national interest, we will eliminate you. And so the picture of Saddam Hussein in the foxhole is golden for the message making that says, subordinate yourselves or this is what could happen to you. But my friends, it's 50 years since Salvador Allende was assassinated. Or perhaps he killed himself. We're not sure. There's a lot we're not sure about with the ups and downs of Chilean politics. But Salvador Allende is not dead. New life has been breathed into his message. And let's think about Salvador Allende, that young physician who dedicated himself to helping to institute a National Institute of Health and the Social Security system, who said he cared a lot about El Pueblo and the health of El Pueblo, and this is the big pharma would just hate. He said, I much prefer a plate of lentils to a bottle of some kind of pharmaceutical tonic. So there's Salvador Allende, who prescribed nonviolence. He would have been on David Swanson's page, saying, look, don't cherry pick. Good for the goose, good for the gander, and there's no war There's no way that any war is going to be the answer. Now, there were many ways, I'm sure, in terms of economic warfare and military warfare, that it might seem that there's no war going on, yet the economic blockades are causing chaos and creating the likelihoods of whole countries falling apart. And the United States has done plenty of that. But I think that we ought not to give up on the possibility that even if we don't see the answers playing out in our lives, our role is to sow the seeds, and harvest may be yet to come. I want to think about what Nick said last night about aging. And where are you, Nick? There you are. I think that's been very important for us to hear. There was a time when it gets blurry for me, but I think at one of our conferences in upstate New York, I probably talked about having gotten arrested at the School of the Americas, like Jeff Gilroy and Pucky Whelan and so many others here at Canaan. And, you know, for me at that point, it was after the war in Iraq, and Ed and I had lived all through the shock and awe bombing, and it was shocking and it was awful, and I came back to the United States, and I just thought, put me in jail. Show me the line to cross. I cannot live at liberty in this society. And so, you know, I care a lot about School of the Americas, but basically I just wanted to know where the line was because I was going to cross it. And so I was arrested and handcuffed, and, you know, at that point in my life, going through security procedures was, you know, not too much different from going through O'Hare Airport's, you know, what a TSA. I've been there, done that, and I think I was daydreaming about something. But it was in a room exactly this size, as I recall, and I was sent to Station J, and I was my handcuffs were taken off, and there were maybe 5 security people, and one had a clipboard, looked like that one was kind of in charge. And what was really unusual is that the security people, it was like they were rehearsing for something else other than a bunch of aging, you know, radicals who aren't giving them any guff. And so the most aggressive search was going on. The person who was shouting the orders was screaming at me and saying, raise your arms higher, spread your legs further, hands inside of clothing, groping. And so the high school study teacher and me came out, and I turned my head toward the person shouting the orders, and I said, could you help me understand why you're screaming at me? Don't say anything! Keep your eyes glued on the soldier in front of you! Spread your legs further! And then, you know, the I don't do what my mother says if I don't think it's right came out, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't cooperate with this anymore. Whack! I was down on the floor, I had a black eye, I was handcuffed again, my ankles were cuffed. My wrists and ankles were cuffed together, they call it hogtied, and the soldier who was about Mark Sibylla Carver's size was kneeling on me. And I thought, you know, where are the dogs? So I had to say something, I was going to pass out. So I said, excuse me, but this really hurts and I can't breathe. Nothing, no response, I'm still. And so I thought, oh, I am gonna go out. So I said again, look, you're really hurting me. I can't breathe. No response. So finally I said, look, I've had 4 lung collapses in the past, and I can't breathe. I mean, it was congenital disease tissue covering both lungs, and my lungs are kind of glued up. There's no way they were going to fall down, but in a pinch. And that worked. They didn't want a dead pacifist on their hands. So the person about Mark Sibylla Carver's size got off of me. I got a deep breath. I'm still hogtied, but okay, I'm going to get through this. And so there's a very important part of this story that I want to ask everybody, whoever hears it, to always remember. Okay, I'm handcuffed, and then they take you to the spot where they want to take your picture, but they can't take my picture because the hair is in front of my face. And so another soldier, I think he was Filipino, said to me, excuse me, ma'am, but in order to take your picture, we have to move the hair from in front of your face. Will that be okay? And I said, oh, sure. And he very gently moved the hair from in front of ma'am's face, and then he squeezed my shoulder. He said, I know those cuffs are real tight, ma'am. We're going to get them off of you as soon as we can. So I needed that. But when Nick mentioned aging, it wasn't until many years later that I started to understand a very fundamental, real truth of that story. Because when Ma'am said, "I can't breathe," she lived to tell the story. When George Floyd said, "I can't breathe," he didn't live to tell this story. So the fundamental racism and injustice and inequity that plagues our society is with us. And then I aged a little bit more and lived long enough to know that when Martin Gugino interfered, he did hit the ground, and he could have died. Came close. So that's also part of our reality. In general, my friends, I would say that if you speak up, no one's going to torture your children. No one's going to persecute your grandchildren. You're not likely to face the travails that afflict so many other people and often at the hands of our country. But the risks are getting higher for everybody because the climate catastrophe, ecological collapse will be quite democratic, if you will. Although the poorest of the poor are going to be hurt first, there's not such an easy escape route. So where do we stand? I think there are some time-tested in my life truths that I don't want to let go of, even though I want to be resilient and learn the new lessons that come with aging. I believe it's pretty essential for all of us to say that we can live more simply, that we can share our resources more radically, that we can continue to look for ways to say to ourselves, I'm not going to let inconvenience interfere with living in accord with my deepest beliefs, and that nonviolence can change the world. Now, there certainly are ways in which our faith beliefs continue to shape us, and so I'm going to speak from a Catholic faith belief. I'm not a very good Catholic these days. I'm a terrible Catholic these days. I don't believe in half of it. I don't believe the Pope is infallible. I love him, but I don't believe he's infallible. There's just so much I don't believe. And then I said, when I was a religion teacher in a Jesuit school, and I'm not going to teach anybody else something I don't believe. Well, all of a sudden my classes were like kind of a narrow curriculum. But I do believe you can't kill Archbishop Romero. He said, me they may kill, but my blood it will rise in the Salvadoran people. And Archbishop Romero breathes life into communities steadily. You can't kill Salvador Allende. It's almost like, I was joking about how I used to read the cereal boxes when I was a kid because my sisters wouldn't talk to me. I think they were afraid they'd catch my nerdiness. And so, but you know, it's kind of like that Jack in the Box idea, or Roto Rooster or whatever, and not back again. You can't kill Oscar Romero, Salvador Allende. Dorothy Day is alive and well. So I do believe in that capacity for resurrection, and that can be a source of great hope for all of us. And then the mystical body. We're all part of one another. Gratefully so, but also we're all tied into one another's traumas and fears. And I think that courage is the ability to control our fears and not to be controlled by our fears. And we catch courage from one another. And your grandchildren, and your children, and your relatives and neighbors, and many, many, they catch courage from you. And, you know, we are here in a very, very beautiful spot, a serene and a lovely setting, and in a place so full of potential. So I guess the other thing I want to say is gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. So thank you to all of you for listening to this, and I look forward to the rest of the day with you. Bob and I will be heading off to Syracuse to All Saints Parish, thanks to Anne and Ed, so I may be gone before you finish out the conference. But I certainly was grateful for last night and for this morning. Thanks.